Amina, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your taking the time to speak with us. It's harder to imagine bigger, bolder ambitions than the Sustainable Development Goals. End poverty, zero hunger, well-being for all at all ages. But these can seem nearly possible to achieve. So how do you galvanize people towards action when the goals can seem so unattainable?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a huge agenda. It's very ambitious, but it is very exciting, and it did take 4 years for us to shape. And that's because we really had a conversation with the world. Member states decided to take this out and to have this, really important discussion about what does it take for a country to go from a trajectory of abject poverty and poor human development indices to one where there is prosperity and peace and respect for human rights. How do we put all that together? And I think that, the richness and the ambition of this agenda was because business participated, civil society participated, young people participated, and I think they made it more ambitious than perhaps if member states did it on their own. Even when we spoke to business, it was about, okay, so how is this in your own self-interest? How can you grow your business? It was not about saying to business, give away your profits. That would be ridiculous. But how do you make profits that are healthy, that are green, that have more value to society, and therefore the sustainability of your business?
We've increasingly seen investors aligning their investments to the Sustainable Development Goals. Was this something you anticipated when you designed the SDGs?
No, I have to say we didn't. We never imagined that they would take the whole framing and that would be a discussion in terms of measures that you would put on the table for whether in fact you were complying with human rights, whether in fact you were taking gender mainstreaming as a very real issue. And so I think been a pleasant surprise, but it has been tasking because we have pushed to say that you might want to issue bonds. They may be green, blue, SDG, gender, but you've got to be sure that we're not washing, right?
Exactly.
Not greenwashing, not blue washing. Transparency is really important. The scale at which this is done and the sustainability of the investments that need to be made, and to make sure that at the end of it, you've got decent jobs and that you're engaging with a more peaceful, stable environment. And you know that since we've had COVID, it's done anything but bring stability. In fact, lots more anxiety, not knowing what tomorrow brings. And that, I think, has created huge challenges for us. But the framing that we use for the SDGs is the only framing that everyone engages with, even in this pandemic.
What's your assessment of where we are as a result of this past year with the pandemic and the very disparate impacts it's had on different communities?
Well, I mean, for one, we were in 2020, when we launched the decade, we were off track to achieving the SDGs. So let's not make any mistake about that. The world was not on track, but there was a sense and an energy that people got it. And so, we woke up in January to start that journey of the decade. And then wham, this tiny little virus said, really? What we didn't realize at that time was that the real catastrophe beyond the losses we had from the health impact was in fact the socioeconomic impact. Shutting down shut people's lives down, their ability to earn, to eat, to survive. And it was happening in countries where we were making a little progress, not enough, and it set us back. It set, millions of people back in extreme poverty. And so I do see that we've taken major steps backwards. However, there is a silver lining in COVID. And that is that we are all conscious about having to make investments today that could actually help us to recover better. We could accelerate.
When you look out to 2030, what do you think are the biggest risks to business if we don't achieve the SDGs?
Well, first and foremost, there is not a chance that in a world that is not sustainable, is unstable, that business could thrive. And I think that, right now, what we need to see is business engaged. And that climate action today is a very real ask of global leaders, because the change that is happening as a result of climate, not just the disasters that we're seeing that are ever more frequent and harsh, but in fact that the recovery is so much more difficult. And so we've got to put investments in to prevent, to adapt, and of course, really huge investments in mitigation to get those targets that we would like by 2050.
If you had one call to action for businesses or investors and big corporate decision makers watching this video, what would you want them to do to really try to advance our progress on the SDGs?
I'd say two things. First, remember that you're one of the 7.5 billion on this planet and you've got a role to play. And the second would be just dig deep and do it. You know what to do, just dig deep and do it. Make each step count. And if you do that, when you look back, you'll appreciate those steps. You'll know that that journey was rich, it was fruitful, you made a difference in people's lives, and hopefully your footprint was green.